Hello and welcome to the Roku SceneGraph section of the Roku Developer Summit. My name is Siddharth Mathai. I'm a senior partner engineer here at Roku, helping everyone get their apps up and running. And I will be presenting the various updates to the firmwares, especially 15.0 for first and foremost. But we will also be going over 14.6 and 14.5, what was new there, just as reminders for everyone. And we will also have a pretty lengthy Q&A session, both with myself and the other panelists here. So you can grab the QR code to log in and be able to ask your questions, which will be moderated and upvoted for later on. So we'll start now with the latest updates to Roku OS 15.0. To start with, we have a new utility. It's called RoUtils. It's a component that has been added, and it provides a unique namespace for a library of new global functions. So I guess going forward, we'll be adding functions to this namespace. For now, we have isSameObject, taking two objects, and it is a function that returns whether two objects are in fact pointing to the same reference object. And this can come in handy in your code. We have also added a new interface to RowArray, basically, and if array size info. This is a new set of functions that provide you with more control over your array capabilities. So is resizable as a Boolean. I suppose it's self-explanatory, but it returns true or false whether a given array is resizable. Capacity as an integer, so that returns what is the current capacity of storage for an array. And of course, the return is as an integer. Reserve, which is and it returns a Boolean, and it takes a minimum size as an integer, and that is a request to allocate or increase a array, and the Boolean is to say whether it was whether the function passed or not, whether the array is indeed resizable or not. Shrink to fit is sort of the opposite of reserve in a way. It is to shrink an array to the requested size, or to the size of the storage that is currently in the array. And likewise, a return is a Boolean because it might have failed or succeeded, and that's the Boolean you have. The area in which you might use these functions the most is with the parse JSON function, because the data using parse JSON is relatively large, and this can come in quite handy when using that function. The next thing that we have is a new function in row device info, get uptime milliseconds as long. And so self-explanatory, it returns the system's uptime since the last reboot in milliseconds. It is similar to the previous global utility uptime function. Well, not previous in the sense that that function is still available, but that one was only returning in seconds. This one returns in milliseconds. And a new one for row datetime, it returns as milliseconds long. So it returns the date and time as milliseconds from the Unix epoch time. There you go. In the media playback and content metadata space, we have a new added functionality to the license wrapping that was added in 14.5 and 14.6. So a little extra addition here is that the content node.drmparams.request field and request field was introduced in 14.6. So anyway, that field now supports the license challenge field being provided as a URL in addition to a text string. We will be covering the other parameters later on when we cover 14.6 and 14.5 as a reminder. The next is row device info. Is auto adjust refresh rate enabled? So this checks whether the auto adjust display refresh rate setting is enabled on a device. Previously, there was no way for a developer to know what was the setting that was set beforehand. We have, for the developer and debugging tools, a new ECP command to check the CEC settings on Roku streaming players. So the query device info command now returns the following fields that indicate whether TV power and audio volume control have been enabled on a player. That is, supports TV power control and supports audio volume control. And the Roku Resource Monitor, or RRM, as we like to call it generally, 4.2, has a new feature, a new data collection mode that enables you to integrate a headless version of the tool into your CLI pipelines. And generally speaking, we are trying to also promote RRM for all your debugging and app improvement needs. Now we will go back and see what, as reminders, what had been added in 14.6 and 14.5. So in 14.6, we had the Widevine license wrapping, and those are the fields that were added. And the 4 fields that had been added at the time was license request template. The second one was template type. And then we had a response field, and finally a request field. And in 15.0, it is the request field that got a little bit of an addition. And as well, in 14.6, we removed the blowfish cipher from row EVP cipher. And parse JSON. We did mention the array, the additions to the arrays, how you could change their sizing. Well, in 14.5 and 14.6, we had parse JSON, and that also included a new D flag that changed the floating point numbers to use double precision floating point values to improve the precision of parse numbers. And I guess that was something that we had run into where there were numbers that were well beyond what integer could take. As well, we're back on the license wrapping, the DRM params. The four fields that I just mentioned were added at that time to DRM params. So I had already mentioned them. And there was also in 14.5, previous to 14.6, a field ignore init data PSSH control attribute that ignores the PSSH in the initialization segment. And this enables support for Dash IOP version 5.0 streams that have in-band key rotation signaling, and without breaking any legacy streams that do not provide the content protection element with PSSH info in the Dash manifest. In 14.5, we had monospace label and monospaced digits added. And this is a node. Monospace label as a node is used to draw a single line of text with all the characters spaced at a fixed distance from each other. It transforms proportional fonts into monospaced fonts. So it is a substitute for using a monospace font with the label node. So it just kind of makes it easier. You don't have to pick fonts if necessary to make them monospace. And now we are back to our Q&A. That was the end of the presentation for what is new in 15.0 and reviewing 14.6 and 14.5. Now you can refer to the QR code again if you hadn't done so before, and I will now pass this on to our Q&A panel.
Okay, so let's start at the top. I assume ROUtil's deep copy works with any object, but there are differences in using it with regular BrightScript objects. I think it's supposed to be, but are there differences in using it with regular BrightScript objects and RSG nodes?
So if you, I mean, it just does a copy in the sense of a BrightScript copy, and it uses the same algorithm underneath as the copying that will copy things into fields. So if you imagine what would happen there, it's basically doing the same. So if you do a deep copy of a node, for example, then that node might have some fields inside it, and but those might itself be further keep on going recursively. But the copying effect you'll get will be exactly what you'd get if you'd copied that whole thing into some field. So hopefully that answers the question.
Okay. Okay. Next question. Is Blowfish removed or just deprecated and will be removed in a later release?
Yeah, at this point, it's just deprecated, but we're encouraging you to stop usage of it because it will be removed in a future release.
Okay, awesome. I assume routils.deepcopy work. Okay, whoops, I think we just did this one right. Yes, okay, sorry, my bad. Okay, next question. Is there any cost associated with creating the routils object, or can it be created and used on demand without any notable performance impact?
There's no, I mean, there's a tiny bit of cost, but it's tiny. It's just, it's not worth worrying about. I mean, don't create it in a tight loop, for instance, but it's going to be sort of microseconds.
Okay, thank you. Next question, is deflag in parse JSON very expensive?
Like the previous answer, I think it's slight. The bigger cost is the memory. If you're doing double precision, then it'll be twice as big as single precision floats. So.
Okay. All right, next question. Shrink array, what is the intended use of this specifically for reducing memory use after parse JSON?
It's to reduce memory usage. So after parse JSON, a lot of the strings may be longer than what required. And so if you call shrink array after, it will shrink the array to the actual size of the strings. So even if they pre-allocated a large array to move the string in, we'll clean up all that space.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Next question. What's some good advice for ensuring all AAs, associated arrays, will get GC'd? We create lots of them. So garbage collected for GCs for that one.
I mean, I think that's a question that could take up an entire hour on its own and still not be answered.
We've got some time. You're gonna take it.
So okay. So the two sort of mechanisms that are around are in BrightScript for releasing things are ref counting and the garbage collector. So the ref counting works by I'm sure everyone knows this. Ref counting works by when you get a reference to it, it increments it. When you kill that reference, it decrements it, and when the reference drops to 0, it goes away. If you don't have any loops, then that all works fine. If you do have loops, then you can go and call the garbage collector, which goes and it is quite expensive. It'll go and walk around the entire domain. It'll add up, walk around and add up how many things it thinks it's got if there weren't any loops. Find all the ones that have got loops and then delete them. So, your first thing you do is not create loops. The next thing you could do is you could in a debug build, or you could call the garbage collector in a sort of a debug way to find out if you've got any loops, and if you have and you weren't expecting them, then go and fix it so you don't have any loops. You might decide, you could just decide that you're prepared to pay the cost of running the garbage collector. You'll just run it all the time. It's quite expensive. It's going to be order N. It doesn't do any mallocs or frees, but it is order N. is worth noting that the garbage collector only runs on the garbage collector only runs, when does it only run? On the domain that you call it on. Yeah, so if you run it on the render thread, it won't do anything for any loops you've got on, say, a task node thread. And then it's also worth noting that you can create a loop that the garbage collector can't detect. So by that I mean that you could set things up so that you've got a field, and inside the field you've got an object, and that references some object that's outside the field, and now you've got a loop. Garbage collector can't detect that because it's crossing a domain, and it'll just use your memory up forever. Yeah, so I think those are that. I hope that sort of touches on some of the approaches. I think it's a really complicated topic. I don't want to take up the entire call with this.
Yeah, I think the simple advice there is don't rely on garbage collection, and try to do reference counting is the way to manage your memory, if at all possible. That's the best bet.
Okay.
Mm.
All right. Next we have a request, 4 years of requesting 9-patch support for mask group, please. Thanks. And just as a quick reminder, we are not supposed to make any forward-facing comments about what might or might not be coming out in the future. But this is definitely a group of people, and we will note the request for mask group, 9-patch support for mask group. So. All right, next, for the new media functions, what's the use of enable refresh rate change? I could not find any documentation about it.
I think that's kind of a very unique use case. So I would anticipate you wouldn't use it in general usage of your channel. It's really about the refresh rates of devices.
Okay. We have another comment, not a question. Finally, I no longer have to ask when we get an emulator smiley face. Yes, the emulator announcement was made yesterday. It's very exciting. And we are looking forward to working with some of the folks on this call in the future to release that. Okay, next. What's the reason the monospace label can't be used as multi-line? Could this be updated by adding a wrap flag like normal labels?
I think this is something that we'd have to take back um, and see what can be done. And I don't actually know the reason why it's only a single line. So we'd have to take this back and get another answer later on.
Okay. Okay, next, please give some love to Draw 2D framework, add basic drawing polygon methods, and please fix the issues with RO region dot set scale mode that is not being respected for several OS versions. Another annual request. Um, Next, is there any documentation on parallel pre-buffer with examples?
I think these are questions coming in from the previous media panel, probably because there was a lot
No,
of.
because we cleared the queue out. So these are for
Oh
this
no, no.
group.
What I mean is they were watching, the
Oh,
previous
oh,
media. Right, because there was a lot of pre-buffer, new pre-buffer stuff in the previous panel. So I think we'd have to take this question with the media team
yeah.
to provide documentation and examples. I imagine it's new, and so the documentation isn't updated just yet. We have the release notes, but I'm sure we'll have documentation and examples coming.
Okay. Okay. All right, next, will the cloud emulator be a full-blown emulator or more like a device farm?
It's a full-blown emulator. It runs on x86 hardware.
Yeah. Kevin, do you want to jump in or? Yeah,
Luke
awesome.
answered it. Yeah, it'll look to the user like a full, like a device, right? So it'll emulate the device well, and you could have a farm of multiple of them conceivably, but
But it's not a big rack
yeah,
of
right.
devices.
Okay, awesome. Okay, next question. Will there be something similar to app manager dot update last key press time? And I don't know that we can comment on that if this isn't an existing function, because then technically we would be making forward-facing statements. But
No,
oh, okay. I think Kevin was still reading it. So it's okay.
Bring it back.
Can you bring it back? Kevin, you
no,
want me to bring it back?
no, that's all right. We can
Okay,
we
so we're gonna stick to the no forward-facing comment section. That's all
yeah.
right. Okay, next question. Why always notify field can be set dynamically in code only when adding a field instead of when setting an observer with it. It will allow changing it several times based on our needs.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a reason for that. It's an interesting request. We could take it back and look at whether we could do that.
I'd just be interested to know why you'd want to sometimes have it always notify and sometimes not.
Okay. Okay, next question. You've all done a great job of improving performance in multiple ways. Is it feasible that BrightScript will keep getting faster?
Yes.
That's our wish and what we're working towards. So yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay, next question. Feature request. So not a question, my bad. Feature request. Add ability to add custom fields to item components so we don't need to use content nodes for everything.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
There's been talk over the years of making the UI and the renderable nodes less dependent on content nodes, but I can't really talk to anything that we might be working on right now.
Okay. Clients still ask, don't shoot the messenger. Will the flicker on app launch ever get fixed?
Well, it's something that we will continue looking into, I think. But there we go. So yes, hopefully someday we figure out what's happening.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Last question for now. Can we have a function that returns descriptive audio user preference in a similar way that we have it for CC? I think it's closed captions. So that I think is a feature request that we will add to our list to take back to other teams. And the next question, why is stack trace not shown if function is called using call func?
Should be. I thought that
Should
got
be.
fixed, but maybe we should take that back and
Yeah.
find out.
Well, I
what's
think it's
going on.
brand new actually that it's fixed. So
True.
yeah, try it in the latest 15.0 release and let us know if it's still an issue for us and file an issue with the sample that doesn't work.
Okay. Okay. And then, so this, the Slido info, please submit any more questions that you might have. Got one more. Oh, important one. Side-carded thumbnails. We've had to process these ourselves on a recent app, was non-trivial. Any chance of this showing up in the future? I'm not sure I even know about side-carded thumbnails, so we can definitely take this back to an engineering team if this isn't the right audience.
Well, maybe clarify the question a bit because so we do have um, BIFs that Roku will render. So Roku can render the trick play images in our video node, but there's also a custom mode, which I think you mean by sidecar thumbnails, is you decide to render the thumbnails. And if you're deciding to render them as sidecarded, then you do have to process them yourselves.
Okay. Okay. All right. Next question. Your opinion on call func versus using a field observer. So what's your opinion? There are some opinions that call func should be avoided.
Yeah, that's one of those questions that we could take up the entire time. Call func does have the property that it copies all of its arguments in and it copies the arguments out. So it is potentially quite expensive. I'd be interested to know what those opinions are, because it may be that there are more bugs in there that we need to go fix. Certainly making call func go faster is on the roadmap. Yeah, so I don't think I can say.
Depending on your use case, there's the third option that we talked about yesterday of the new RO render thread queue APIs also.
Okay.
Yeah, I think call func is fine if you're passing around simple types, and I don't think it'd be a problem. I think if you start passing around large amounts of data, it could get really messy.
Okay. All right. Next question. It would be amazing to know or have track of the functions that a node has in their interface. I'm wondering maybe this is a bright script profiler question? Or
Yeah, there is a has interface. I think it's called has interface, where if you know the name of the interface you're interested in, you can check it at runtime. But I think you're asking for a way to just discover the interface of a node. And yeah, that doesn't exist today, but it's something we could think about.
okay. Okay. So please, if you've got more questions, we've got more time. Okay. Feature request allows splitting a code line into several multiple lines for better view of long if conditions or big functions with lots of parameters.
There is a line continuation character. It's the underscore in BrightScript. So rather than a backslash, it's underscore.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, for RSG node memory leaks, I find SG node roots command extremely useful. Nodes are leaking due to circular reference. What would you recommend to find leaking memory with associative arrays? Are there any tips or tricks?
Your first line of attack is probably Roku Resource Monitor. It'll give you counts and memory usage for associative arrays.
Okay. All right. So keep the questions coming. We still got time. Okay. What do you guys think about allowing us to create our own interfaces like if array? I guess this is more of a BrightScript language question.
I think it'd be a great idea, but I don't think we've got any plans to do it in the near future, unfortunately. I agree, it would be quite an interesting idea to pursue, but I can't see us doing it in the short term.
Okay. All right. Okay. Next question. Message queues are most useful for worker threads, but the new RO render thread queue notably is lacking any support whatsoever for that. What gives? We should be freeing render thread instead of burdening it with long-living tasks.
So the render thread queue is specifically for sending messages to, you know, as the name suggests, the render thread. And yeah, I agree that there's a problem that if you've got a group of cooperating task node threads, then you want to be able to send messages between those, and that is very, very awkward at the moment. Maybe something we should go away and look at if that's a sort of a common pattern that people are trying to use, and yeah, I mean it does bottleneck through the all of those communications end up having to go through the render thread at the moment. So yeah, perhaps that's something we should look at.
Okay. Okay. Wait, what? When did underscore get added as a line continuation character? It produces a syntax error in 14.6.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
I think
that's,
I was
go
surprised by
ahead,
that
Luke.
as well. I'm not sure. I thought
Okay.
that there wasn't.
Yeah, so that was years ago. It may have been broken along the way, so we'll have to try that.
Okay. Okay. We'll create a bug ticket for that one and look into it. Okay, awesome. Next, is it possible to have the ability to see the stack trace of a field observer in the future? So that would be a roadmap question, and we're not
I
supposed to.
thought that it was possible to see it in the present.
Okay, well then maybe it's not a roadmap question.
But I don't know about doing it. Yeah, I mean, I think it works in the present. If you if you got 15.0, then it works now. Get it?
Yeah, that works today with Perfetto, I'm pretty sure.
No, as in this is the thing that was fixed in 15.0 that if you've got a the bright script call stack will traverse field observer callbacks. I believe in 15.0. I've not actually used it. I've just read
Yeah,
previous notes.
so that's my understanding as well. That is something we tried to address in 15.0. So yeah, it should now be there.
What is the possibility of doing multiple inheritance, i.e., have my node extend label plus some other node type? Is that a kick it to the roadmap default response, or is that something that's possible now?
No, not possible now.
Okay. Okay. All right. Submit your questions, Slido. We've still got a little bit more time. This is the last panel of the day, and then we will be wrapping up the Dev Summit after this. So please, please, please take advantage of the time that you have with some of our best engineers at Roku who work with BrightScript, SceneGraph. Please, please, please.
Keep just throwing your feature request.
Another feature request. Function which tells us if a field is already observed and by which function.
Okay.
So function which tells us if the field is already observed and by which function. Yeah, because that's quite interesting because there's this common problem of how do you unobserve things.
Okay. Next question. Where is the after party? So if you're in San Jose, California, Jonathan and Tom and I are going out for dinner afterwards.
Captain, where do you live?
Yes, we are all in San Jose now, except, Luke's in UK, and then Chris is wherever Chris is at. Yeah, the rest of us are in San Jose just for this week. So We got another question. Stack trace for observers and calling does require 15.0 plus debug protocol. I don't believe it is included in the telnet logs.
So yeah, I think my expectation is that it should be included on the telnet debugger as well as in the debug protocol. So if it's not working on the telnet debugger, then yeah, we'll want to take a look at that.
Okay. Any ideas on the occasional issue that device clears the registry on its own?
I mean, there is the thing that the registry is. So it's a very long time since I looked at this, but I think isn't it the case that the registry, you can end up, if you've got two threads talking to the registry, you can end up with them fighting each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
Be quite
So
key. Go on.
yeah, Roku itself should not be clearing the registry. It should be something that you've done in your app, and it'd be a bug if you find that Roku's clearing the registry.
But I mean, if you can write a channel that demonstrates it, that
Yeah.
would be really interesting.
Yeah, the other time that the registry can be cleared is if you uninstall a channel and reboot, its registry will go away.
Yeah, for all, if you've completely uninstalled all the channels that access that registry, then yeah, then it gets cleared, but that's only if the user uninstalled them all.
Right, and that's by design.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. And I've heard of this issue, and I think the response might be we already have a bug ticket open for it. But any idea on why a device that's always plugged in, power plus Ethernet, would fail to regularly check for updates?
I
If
think
it's
there's also a
the-
clarifying bit to this, which is it firmware updates or app updates? Because I think there's two
I believe
parts.
it's firmware updates. When it was shared with us in the past, they weren't getting firmware updates pushed to their device.
Yeah,
But I
because
don't know.
there is also the thing where if it doesn't check for updates for a while, the sideload installer stops working and you have to go manually check for updates. And that can happen on a TV that's always plugged in if you have like the power saving stuff turned on. So if you haven't turned that TV on in a while and its Wi-Fi is off because of the power saving, then you can get into that state.
Okay. Okay. How about clearing global node on its own?
That should not happen.
That should not happen. Okay.
I think is this during shutdown?
Okay.
Possibly. Is that clearing global node happening during shutdown? I think
Yeah,
it might
if
be.
you want to, Sasa, if you want to do some clarification, if you want to post a clarification in Slido, then we can maybe give you more specific response on that one.
Full file bug report.
Okay, next question from Liam. Would Roku ever consider adding a bitmap node we could write bytecode to? I've seen it done via writing to temp, but it is slow.
I think the security team might have something to say about that.
Okay.
But, is that bytecode or just generally bytes? It's surely not for writing actual. I think that's for writing. I think this is image manipulation, isn't it?
I read it as image manipulation, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is possible today. So what you described should work.
Isn't the problem that is this actually doable though? 'Cause I think you end up. I'm not an expert on this, but I think you do end up with finding there's a kind of a hole in the API.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Next question, is there a way to set a component's field to be read only to outside?
No, not today.
Okay. Okay, and so I think this is the follow-up about the issue, the updates. I have the check for updates issue on some of my set-top boxes, unable to sideload after a week. Sometimes factory reset fixes the issue. So it's not happening to TVs, it's happening to set-top boxes.
Yeah, I think same comment, just check your power saving settings. You shouldn't have to factory reset. Generally, if you just manually go check for updates in the settings menu, it should start working. Right, and possibly a reboot, but you should not have to factory reset. If you do, let us know and we'll look into it.
Well, I think we'd especially want to know if you manually check for updates and it's not getting an update when you manually do it, then yeah, that seems strange.
Okay. Okay. Next question. I'm experimenting with migrating some code to main. I've got a scene, but I get no joy with observer field scoped. The error is BrightScript error ROSG node dot observer field scoped, no active host node. What should I do?
I think that might be because observe field scoped rather than observe field tries to store the context into the host, doesn't it? Into the node that owns the thing. So does this maybe just not work in the main context? I'm surprised. It's not supported.
Okay.
Yeah, if what he means by that is the main BrightScript thread, then that is effectively a different domain in Roku RSG mode. So yeah, I concur with Luke.
Okay. Okay. Next up, possible feature add params to create object function. Is that something we can do today, or should we add that to our feature request list?
What would you do with the params?
Guys want to hear more about why?
What would you do with the parameters? Okay. Yeah.
Well, the background on that is create object is for objects in Roku OS. So you don't use it to like create components, custom components from the developer's perspective. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. Um, so back to the issues we're having with devices not getting OS updates. So Kevin followed up, manual updates always work. I only discovered factory reset worked on one device because I was switching jobs, so I needed to change the email address of the device. Yeah.
I think maybe I think maybe if you're really seeing that devices are failing to update, then possibly if you need to investigate a bit further, some device IDs might help.
Okay. Okay. Still got some time left. So if you've got any more questions, if anybody wants any clarification on what they can capable of doing now, put it in Slido. Okay, beta channels used to update instantly. Now it takes hours. Anything on that?
Did they used to update instantly?
It's
They
always been
use
kind of hit and miss. That's probably more of a Tom question.
Okay. Well, Tom is not in the room with us right now, so I will Slack him later and share that. So, okay. Okay, so try changing the observe field just now. No active host node for observe field either. So if I'm on main, can I observe a field on a node made with create object? Is this something that doesn't work, needs another approach, or is there some sequence of events that I'm missing?
I think maybe this needs to be taken offline.
Okay.
I think rather than try and debug it in this call, I think it's pretty unfair.
Okay. Okay, next question. Just curious for observers, why it was initially decided to pass the name of the function as a string instead of a reference to the function itself.
I think that might be lost to time. I don't know the original reason.
Okay. Okay. Any more questions? Okay. When can we expect support for multiple videos? Something where only one audio plays, but multiple videos can play. I feel like that kind of sounds like multi-view,
Yeah.
but
Well, something we're looking at. We're always monitoring that and doing various proof of concepts, but nothing publicly available at this point.
okay. Okay. Any more questions? We've got a little bit of time left. Okay. Why is it so hard to identify timeout crashes root cause? One of the most frustrating scenarios for us to debug with live apps.
So, I mean, it depends on what the timeout's caused by, but a lot of the time it'll be running low on memory and the system starts grinding and swapping and things get worse and worse. So that makes it very hard to diagnose because it's not that particular line of code that's actually the problem. It's that the channel has consumed lots of memory. So if you've got that, I would start by trying to work out if you've got a leak in your channel. So, for instance, you could run Roku Resource Monitor and see whether, if the line goes up, then that's bad, and go fix that. And you don't need to wait for it to start timing out. If the line is going up, eventually it's going to get to a point where it's going to time out.
And I would also say with the new Perfetto tool, you could actually look at the render thread and see what all is executing before it gets a time.
Yeah.
So there's basically a watchdog timeout on the render thread. And if it can't execute a render pass in a timely manner, it will give you one of these timeout crashes as well. So you could take a look at that.
And you could also actually end up in those sort of scenarios if you have like an infinite while loop or whatnot during the function call. Eventually, this will hit that timeout as well, and you could probably inspect that from there.
Okay. All right. Next question. Support for an array of item component names on a row list rather than one item for all rows. So I think this might be a feature request, unless this is something that we can do now.
No, that's a good one though. I like that idea.
Okay. To the feature request list.
I think it is on. Yeah, yeah, it's a good idea.
Okay. There seems to be a limit of 7 folders in the path of the XML file component before it fails to compile. Why is that? Or should we create a bug ticket? And this isn't supposed to happen.
That shouldn't happen.
That shouldn't happen. Okay.
No.
The bug ticket list.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. Any more questions? Clarifications, feature requests, potential bugs? Please submit now. Just got a little bit more time left. Yeah. Do we get any swag this year? I mean, every year we have some limited t-shirts that are run for our presenters. Felix and Sid right now are repping the 2025 shirts. Yes. So we have a very limited number, and we will be, for our external presenters, we will be shipping some to them so that they can have them. And who knows? Maybe we will, we'll see what happens. We'll have some drinks tonight, and maybe we'll figure out, people will sign up for next year's presentations, active members of our community. We'll see. But I want to say how much I appreciate Sid and Felix for, wearing the shirts that we had this year. And yes. So, any more questions? Anything? This is it for the Dev Summit. So if you don't have any more questions, keep them coming while you still got time, because you're not going to see us again until next year. So. All right, last call. Not a question. Thanks so much for all of your efforts. Some brilliant announcements this year. We will put them to good use. Thank you for your hard work. Yes, I think that's a great way for us to wrap up one of our favorite panels to do. It's always a great treat to hear all of the questions that come in. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen, and I will say that that's a wrap for this annual developer summit. I'm incredibly happy and grateful to be able to share the last panel with all of these folks on this call. I want to say thank you for everybody's time, all the questions that have been submitted. And I just want to shout out, this year that we've had, our content has grown. We've included some new panels. We've had some amazing announcements this year. And I know that some of these announcements people are excited, right? Emulator, the Roku Cloud Emulator, we're going to be following up on that throughout the next year. Our external panel, Nick was able to showcase some real use cases of, subtitles as we grow in international regions. This is great content. And Chris and Bronley, our community tools developers, and they've grown so much over the years, and we want to continue to grow with them in the future. So once again, thank you all so much, everybody who's here, and then everybody who watches the YouTube replays also, for giving us your time, for continuing to be part of the Roku ecosystem. And we're just incredibly grateful for all of it. So with that, that's a wrap.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye.